Welcome back to Watches Live. It's the only show on this channel, so you're in the right place. Welcome to you, welcome to my crew, and thanks to all joining in, especially if you're getting up early or you're staying up late to join me. I have an incredible array of watches on the table. I picked all my favorite stuff, so this is a little bit personal tonight, and I could see that I'm personally grateful to Asa28, Edward Ledden of Sweden, Eddie Landsberg, Andrew, Mentality, Kevin, Joe D, Richard H, Tom P. Welcome, guys. Okay, I promised you the Lange Sohne Big Three, and here they are. Zeitwerk, Datograph, Lange One, and my favorite versions of each. Let's start with the original, the Blockbuster from 1994, albeit in a later variant. This is the 10135, better known as the Darth Vader. All blacked out. Sterling silver dial, galvanized black with blacked out double date. Now the watch, 38.5 millimeters in platinum, has incredible heft for its size. It's an easy watch to wear, and as you can see, it's an easy watch to love. Wonderfully massive, slightly anachronistic, almost with the look of a pocket watch converted for the wrist, but that is the Lange aesthetic. Now you get close, and you can see that the L90 is a wonderful caliber. Twin mainspring barrels. You have a 3-day power reserve. It beats away at 21.6. It's incredible to think that the original watches built in the early to mid 90s in this line featured solid case backs until people started requesting display. I would have imagined they would have gotten right out of the gate showing off the goods, but then again, the Germans are understated. Now, the watch has a pusher adjuster system for its date, so it actually winds up giving you the tactile sensation and experience that you would find with a high-grade column wheel chronograph, which is to say this is a very sensual watch. There's the feel, there's the sound, there's the mass of it on the wrist, the superb fit, and the universal 38.5 millimeter size. Everything you want, right down to the power reserve, and there's some complex geometry at play that governs the relationship between the placing and the spacing of these features, so it's not as though they are distributed randomly. There is a mathematical logic behind this, as you would expect from the folks in Saxony. I'm going to pull off my Easy M1 because you guys already know this watch well. Give you a quick wrist shot. Try to wrist shot every watch on the table tonight. We're off to a fly-in start with the Lange One. You can see the Darth does have a very different look with that blacked out date. It completes the watch. There's a coherence here that's lacking in the standard black on white date variant. Absolutely gorgeous, whether you're into the silly name or not. The Darth Vader, the 10135. I can see friends joining in. We have Alexi Simola of Finland. We have John Smith joining from Harrogate, UK. I can see Adrian C's joining from the Midwest. Tom P, Hail Bop, Kevin, I welcome all of you aboard, and I can see Matt Foster joining in. Alexi, hi to Tim, hi to the crew. He's saying hi to you guys. Congrats, you got a fan base now. And right here, we have Richard Howard saying, Bon Mercier, one of these days, Tim. You know what, we need to feature the Bonmatic chronometer on here when I have one. And finally, I can see Zeus87, Alim Dalla saying he loves his Geo Panamatic Lunar. We've got a Geo on the show tonight for you. Dr. Phaedrus, Rich Buddy, and a Monk93 joining in. Philip P joining in from Singapore. Thank you, Philip Peachy. I really appreciate you getting up early with us. Let's jump to a brand I love and a model that's a little bit more tropical. I feel this is more of a Miami watch than a Philadelphia watch. Nevertheless, I love the basic Omega Deville Hour Vision annual calendar. It's not nearly as big as it looks. It looks like a 43 or a 45. It's actually a 41 with sensational rose gold applique indices, rose gold hands and Omega marquee, and rhodium plated guidron that run the entire circumference of the hour track and meet at the month and the date. It is an annual calendar. It need be adjusted only once a year. In the jump that we just passed from February to March, the Hour Vision annual calendar launched in 2008. It continued the 2007 Hour Vision's 4-corner sapphire display ports. So this was the beginning of sapphire in cases. And as you can see, this is anything but a standard Omega Speedmaster and Seamaster case. It is gorgeous. It is curvaceous. It's a little bit sinuous and sexy. And I have to say, I love the combination of the solid rose gold movement components with the high-tech purpose-built 8600 family coaxial. This is the 8611. Solid gold balance bridge, solid gold rotor. Now you throw it on the wrist, and you can see why I love this basic model. I'm actually thinking of buying the steel model for myself. It's not nearly as big as it looked off the wrist. Suddenly it fits, it's trim, it's compact, it's wearable, and on a wrist smaller than mine too. I adore this watch. You can pick this up for around $10,000, and you know, at that point, we're talking about $2,000 below Daytona money for a watch that arguably offers more. I love that timepiece. And that was the beginning of silicone hairsprings in Omega watches, the annual calendar hour vision. Let's jump to a watch that has nothing in common with the one we just saw, except for the fact that it's Swiss, it's complicated, and it's a great value in its price point. And this is a watch previously featured on the program. I wanted to bring it back because I want to showcase a few highlights of the Tag Heuer Carrera Heuer 02 Tourbillon Tete de Vipere. Now, it is a Besançon French observatory chronometer certified as a fully cased watch at the observatory in Besançon, France, rather than a bare movement COSC test like the standard Heuer 02 Tourbillon. But this one also features a blue satin finished ceramic case that makes it feather light and robustly scratch resistant. The tack is also in blue ceramic. If you note, it's not a standard, let me see if I can move that minute hand, it's not a standard tourbillon. It is a flying tourbillon. So if we get super close, guys, you can see this is a no bridge, or I should say one bridge, the lower bridge tourbillon. Nothing to obscure your view of the mechanism. Chronograph minutes, chronograph hours, and then you've got a vertical clutch column wheel chronograph. 155 pieces made for 2018, so it is a rare timepiece. And you can see on the case back, just barely visible, embossed on the bridge, the Vipere's head, the signature of the Besançon Observatory chronometer. Note that they went all blue and black with the caseback, including bluing the wheels themselves. 65-hour power reserve and 100 meters water resistant. This is a wear-it-all-the-time Torb. It retails for $24. I'm not sure what we're offering it pre-owned, but what a monster. Okay, jumping into the chat box, I can see right here Abdul Rahman joining us. He has been sending me the best wrist shots from his vacation, and I've got Edward Ledden saying, must say I like this Tag Heuer. That one changed my mind about tag complications. They put real work into that, and I'll tell you this, it's not the only tourbillon on the table tonight, but I guarantee you it's the most accurate. I might as well show you the most beautiful tourbillon on the table, but probably not the most accurate. This is a watch just purchased by a good client and a friend of the brand. I wanted to bring it on the show to showcase it one more time, so tantalize before we deliver. 38mm FP Journe Tourbillon Remontoir 4th series from the first generation. This watch was made in 2002 or 2003 based on the dial, the configuration, and the case back. 38mm in pink gold. You can see it features that filigree style wire tourbillon carriage, overcoil hairspring, free spring balance. This was before you had the deadbeat seconds at 6 o'clock. You always know you're looking at the first generation Tourbillon Remontoir because there's a hole in the dial right there. Now you can see it works the same way. The Remontoir became a jumping seconds. On the case back, you can see it's the brass movement generation. The brass movement is not golden like brass, it's silver like rhodium, because these were always rhodium plated to protect them from corrosion, but it is a brass movement caliber. 1498. Work started on this in 1998. The first models, the first 20 subscription watches, were delivered in 1999. This is a 4th series watch. All told, first generation tourbillon, not including the ruthenium, somewhere between 280 and 401. 99 more if you add the ruthenium, 38 more if you include the 2015 Steel Series. A very rare watch. And I can see Dante Miami saying one of my Grail watches in a perfect size. Let me show you just how perfect is the size. This is a watch that wears well on any wrist because while it wears well on a small wrist, only 44.8mm lug to lug. Nevertheless, it has so much presence and personality. Even if you have a huge wrist, I'm sorry, but you're not going to have the character and the mass and the presence and the persona to dwarf or upstage this thing. No way. This is always the star, regardless of wrist size. Which is why I say buy a 38 and buy the brass movement. If you must have a 40, the rutheniums were the only first-gen Journe Tourbillon with a 40mm case. And I could see Alvin joining. Alvin, all right, thanks for getting up early with us. Let's jump straight into the next of our Lange Masterclass. We're doing the big three. We just saw the Lange 1, the Darth Vader. Now we're looking at the original Revolution, the Datograph. The Lange 1 put Lange on the map, but the Datograph of 1999 put the fear of God into Patek Philippe. 39mm in platinum. This one is the 403, I want to say it's the 403035. So it's a watch that is a flyback chronograph with an oversized date and a pusher adjuster. The column wheel chronograph is as silky smooth as the pusher for the date. Now the watch is easy to wear because it's not huge. It's only 12.8mm thick. Though it appears squat, it really isn't that chunky. It is massive though. In platinum with a solid silver dial, the watch has a movement, the L951, that is many things. Let me show you. It is a It is a flyback chrono, so let me get it running, but it is stock, a flyback, so you can reset and restart just by pushing the reset trigger, and then of course turn it all over. And this is really more impressive than the Lange one. As impressive as that was, that is mostly a giant 3/4 bridge. This is a forest of metal and jewels, blues and violets and golds and silver, with a big slow beating balance. 5 beats per second, 18,000 vibrations per hour. Look at it from an angle and appreciate the depth of this incredible, I would say, work of art, but it's also state of the art in terms of modern watchmaking. It is both. It's a column wheel lateral clutch chrono, and look, the lateral clutch fully jeweled, no bushings in there. Lange even managed to slip a chaton fixed by screws, that is the jewel setting fixed by screws. It's a signature of their bridges, but they slipped one into the clutch for the chronograph. Guys, this is as good as it gets, and an absolute pleasure to wear and actuate. A good size at 39 millimeters. This watch was redesigned in 2012. The datograph up down, it wasn't the same. I prefer this first generation watch. Like I said, I picked my favorite versions. And you can see Alvin, he is a fan. You tuned in just at the right time, my man. And Asa28 saying, shall we not forget that Ajax won from Real Madrid 4-1 today? Okay, I can see there's something else going on in the chat box. Keep your football politics separate from your watch politics. Do we have any Patek partisans? Tell me what you think of the Langes. But let's jump to a watch that is Teutonic in its sensibility, but hails from the other side of the German-Swiss border. The other manufacturer of Schaffhausen, and what a manufacturer. 1,200 to 1,500 watches a year. A Lange Sohne has nothing on H. Moser Cie. H. Moser Cie, a company only established back in 2005, reviving an old name that was famous for trading Swiss watches in St. Petersburg, Russia. You can see this is the Endeavour Perpetual Moon, platinum, 40.8 millimeters. This is a company that only makes 1,200 to 1,500 pieces a year. It's a fumé sunburst style, so it's a sort of metallic cobalt blue at the center and almost navy black blue at the edge. Leaf style foy hands, all white gold hands, white gold indices, and a moon phase accurate to 1,027 years. Now you can see the Endeavour case is incredibly complex. The bezel enlarges and flows. It ebbs and flows really from side to side and end to end. The lugs are hollowed out, sculptural, and internally black polished, vertical satin finish, and you can see it's really like molten metal. Platinum lava, flash frozen for use on your wrist, and at only 48 millimeters lug to lug, this is an easy watch to wear on a small wrist. Look at the case back. They cambered the case back to arc it around your wrist. They even cambered the sapphire. It too is curved. Turn it all over, and you can see there's a lot going on here. Not only do you have that perpetual moon phase on the dial side, note all of the flourishes on the case back. This is caliber 348-901, 26 jewels, manual wind, 7-day power reserve. Look at this power reserve indicator. It's an annular circular display, and it moves along a scale that's etched into the bridges of the movement. You wind the power reserve up to 7 days. Spoiler alert, this is Swiss or German-Swiss understatement. They claim 7 days. It'll run for more like 9. The balance beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour, 5 beats per second, adjusted in 6 positions, not the chronometer standard 5. You can pull the whole balance and escapement out as one piece during service, and they stick one in already serviced. It speeds up the process, and yes, they build all of their parts, the balance, the overcoil hairspring, and the 14-karat solid gold escape wheel and lever. Note that the jewels are fixed in chaton for the twin mainspring barrels, just like an old pocket watch, and they're double crested, not single crested, Côte de Genève across the bridges. Beautifully executed and absolutely unique. This is a company that makes everything, and I do mean everything in the watch. Now, who else works in Schaffhausen? Well, we'll find out a little later in the episode, but let's jump to something a bit more accessible. Let's say you got about $2,700, $2,600 to spend. You want a great brand, and you want a rock star name. Well, you don't have to spend AP money to get a Michael Schumacher chronograph. This is the 1996 Omega Speedmaster Reduced Michael Schumacher, yellow lacquer dial with an explosive gloss center, red accents for chronograph, seconds, minutes, and hours. You can see that there is a racing-style checkered flag, staggered minutes and seconds track outboard with blackened hands for the time of day. And you can see the contrast is outstanding with yellowed centers, so the blackened hands seem to float above the dial. This is reference 3510-1200, and you can see it features an old-school plexiglass for a lovely vintage-style off-axis distortion. Automatic winding. This was one of 3 watches launched in the initial Schumacher series with the red and the blue back in '96. These watches are legendary like the man himself. I have to admit, I'm not much of a Michael Schumacher fan. Heinz-Harald Frentzen was my preferred German F1 driver back in the day, and unfortunately he never soared to quite the high highs. I was also a fan of David Coulthard, and he was a wonderful driver who never quite lived up to his potential in the shadow of Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen both. But I can tell you what, I love Michael Schumacher's watch, and again for about $2,600, stainless steel, outstanding condition, and a little bit of a vintage vibe, now 22 years old. These are very cool watches and a great way to get into big name luxury Swiss timepieces. I'm a big fan of Omega generally, which is why I worked 2 into this episode. And I can see right here, we have, that's Bod saying he's no for the Schumi. Is it because of Schumi or just because you don't like the reduced? And I could see, as a 28 saying that looks like a president bracelet. Yes, agreed, it really does. Now let's jump into another watch that's absolutely sensational, but for reasons that were controversial. A sensation and a controversial sensation. The Panerai Luminor Due shocked folks. First, because it's a Luminor that's not overpowering in its size. Second, because it doesn't overpower in its thickness. And third, because this is effectively a Panerai dress watch. This is the PAM 728, the Panerai Luminor Due 3 days Titanio, titanium and 42 millimeters, only 10.5 millimeters thick. It has a 3-day power reserve movement and a 0 reset second system with an explosive sunburst blue dial. And it is a sandwich dial with a stencil in blue atop a solid disc of ecru simulated patina luminova. Note that the finish of the watch is principally in satin. On the case back you have Panerai manufacturer caliber P1000 manual wind 3-day power reserve, and nicely executed. It's a rugged movement, it's a tough movement, it's just a 30-meter water-resistant watch. So if you want the iconic Panerai shape to stay high and dry, this is one that can fit under a cuff and fit on a smaller wrist. It has discretion, it has elegance, and it has the R word, restraint, something for which Panerai is not typically known. Are you into it? You either are or you're not, and there is no middle ground. This was a controversial piece, and it remains so. About $8,700 pre-owned. This is a Panerai that I could wear. I just don't know if I'm comfortable with the water resistance. I feel like a Panerai has got to swim, but this one certainly knows how to fly. Jumping in the chat box, Alexi saying one of the rare PAMs I like, and Andrew saying that's the nicest Panerai I've ever seen. I've seen a lot, and it's up there. And I can see right here we've got Alvin saying, morning Razik. Razik, are you just joining us? Oh, Abdul, my man from the Black Forest. Are you back? Are you back from vacation? Are you back in the Black Forest of Germany, or are you still abroad? Okay, and we can see right here James Hegarty saying, would be my perfect PAM. And Turkischer Meister saying, I prefer the Radiomir, a friend in Turkey. We've got Slits85 saying 30 meters is enough. You know what? For splashes and rain, it absolutely is. I agree with you on that count. Most of us are not going to take our dress watches diving, nor do we need to. If you want a high horology watch, though, that can go swimming, 120 meters will get it done. And this is a wonderful, unconventional pairing of a well-known Patek Philippe with a lesser-seen brown chocolate composite strap, 5164A. This is a model that debuted back in 2011. There is still no Nautilus equivalent to this. A time, and I might say dual time only, sports timepiece in stainless steel. There's a chrono dual time. There's a chrono travel time Nautilus, but there's nothing just like this. Beautifully balanced with the winglets acting as the pusher adjuster for the travel time system, doubling as a counterbalance to the crown guards. Only 10.4 millimeters thick. This one's slim, and only 47 millimeters lug to lug with a screw down crown and a screwed in case back. This is absolutely a high horology watch that you can take swimming. Patek Philippe seal, no worse than -3 + 2 seconds a day. Free sprung Gyromax, as well as a Spiromax silicone hairspring. It's got the tech. The only thing it really doesn't have is hacking seconds. Spoiler alert, there is a hack for this watch to allow you to hack it. I have the hacking hack. You apply a little bit of a back pressure to stop the seconds hand, and you can effectively pinpoint the second and set your watch. So yes, just don't tell Patek that their watch hacks. There's a hack. And I can see right here Thomas Burnett saying, I love the Aquanaut, and Edward Ledden saying, Ronnie Peterson was better. We all have our heroes. And right here, High and Rising saying, even if I'm not going diving, I feel more secure with a watch that's rated for 100 meters or more. You know, so do I. Frankly, if I can only have one watch, I'm going to wear something that's highly water resistant. But if I've got a quiver, I would say there's going to be a 30-meter dress watch in there. I will say, if you want the best of both worlds, Omega, Deville, Hour Vision, Annual Calendar. Annual Calendar, dress style watch, 100 meters. And I could see BS saying a beautiful color right there. And the Watch Lounge saying JLC sector dial added to the collection. Okay, what do you think, Tim? Yay or nay? I would say there are a couple of sector dials. I'm a big fan of the Geographic, which is probably the least popular of the three. So go with what sings to you. Of the three, the most popular is easily going to be the Master. Second most popular is going to be the Chrono. And then finally, there's going to be the Geographic, which is the most useful and the most complicated. Unfortunately, it's also the most expensive. I advise you buy pre-owned on that count. Boom, and I could say, J.E.J. saying, I like your shirt, Tim. So do I. It's my color. All right, let's jump into the last of our Lange Big Three. In fact, my favorite of the Big Three. You've got your Lange 1. You've got your Dato. You want to complete the trifecta. You need something iconic, but you're also ready to go outside the bounds of the cornerstone watches. The more conservative establishment Lange timepieces all came during the 90s. In 2009, 10 years ago, the revolution finally arrived. Now that was, of course, the Zeitwerk. Jumping minutes, jumping hours, and, remarkably, a constant force movement with a Remontoir de Galité a la FP Journe, albeit with a circular hairspring. Let's go to the dial, guys. We're about to watch the jump. This is a watch that stunned observers because Lange was beautiful. Lange was a miracle, restarted from the ashes of communism, but Lange was not necessarily avant-garde. All of that changes at the turn of the hour with the Zeitwerk, a masterpiece, 42 millimeters. This is actually the white gold model, but it's believed to be the most charismatic by collectors. I remembered there was talk when the originals came out that this would overpower the limited edition platinum model, and sure enough, it did that in the market. Turn it all over, caliber L043. Now, I mentioned there's a lot going on. You wind the watch. It goes into a mainspring barrel with a Maltese cross stop works that halts the watch when it no longer has enough energy to jump the minutes. 36-hour power reserve because it takes so much energy, but the mainspring that's in there is a meter long, and it's so powerful that one end of the mainspring is actually fixed to the movement base plate to anchor it in place. Now you can see there's a little time bridge in there. That is the bridge that moves from an air brake. There's a pinwheel inside there that slows down the transmission of power from the jumper to the Remontoir, which sits just under my finger. There are two third wheels, and there's a circular hairspring between them. Once every minute, you just saw the pallet system that unlocks and transfers the energy. You just saw it operate, but once a minute, it pulses the Remontoir, which transfers the power to the escapement. So though huge amounts of energy and huge up and down pulses, power and then nothing, jump through the system, the balance always receives the same amount of energy. And yes, it has that same depth effect that you get with the Datograph. My personal favorite Lange model and my personal favorite version of that Lange. By the way, this time bridge on the front, this is officially called the time bridge. It's actually part of the movement. And what you're looking at right there is a clear sapphire that doubles as the pivot jewel for the two discs displaying the tens of minutes and the single-digit minutes. It's a rhodium-plated German silver component that is part of the movement. And since we're getting close to the jump, I'm going to ask my crew to stay with me one more time because it's just too cool to watch this watch do its thing. Boom. Strikes like lightning, the Zeitwerk. Okay, and I could see Big Mike saying, Tim, you should bring that Constellation dial Lange back on. Believe me, I would love to have a copper blue on the show. I need to get one first. Rick TikTok saying, let's see it on the wrist. All right, I showed you the Lange 1. I showed you the Dato. Now I'm going to show you the 49.9 millimeter lug-to-lug 42 millimeter Zeitwerk. It's actually pretty wearable. It's an easy watch to wear. The lugs curve around the wrist. It's big, but it's not overbearing. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference. It has a lot of presence. Does it take a bit of panache to wear the watch? You better believe it does. But then again, it's the man that makes the watch and not the other way around, as I am fond of saying. Big, but not too big. Now, if you start getting into the Zeitwerks that make noise, those are probably too big. And I can see right here, Tim, have you heard any news about whether Lange will be upgrading their standard and striking time models with the longer power reserve? You know something, right now, Lange has pretty much launched all of its early year news. They are probably going to wait until around Basel and then again in the fall to debut new technologies in existing models or iterations of existing models. So they're holding their fire for now, but rest assured, it'll come. Let's jump to something super special because it's simple. Sometimes less is more. And Grand Seiko proves that not only Rolex can do a wonderful full-size stainless steel no-date watch. For a man on the move, this is the all-around pleasure of 100-meter water resistance, 42mm full size, a timepiece that makes no excuses with no date, a gloss lacquer dial with all hand-applied diamond faceted and polished indices. This is a no-date Grand Seiko. I've heard people say that Grand Seiko dials are beautiful but too busy. Well, here's the antidote to that. You can see the gloss of that lacquer I'm showing you now, as well as the three-dimensional gleam of those faceted gem-like indices and black polished Dauphine hands. Now, it's a big watch, make no mistake, but it does have black polish on the exterior of its case. That's the tin plate polish for which Grand Seiko is known. The watch is 52mm link to link across the wrist, so it is a big bruiser by Grand Seiko standards. Not a sports watch. This is one of the largest non-sporting Grand Seiko models, but this is a watch you could wear anywhere, with anything, under any conditions, and short of its lack of lume and a date, there's really nothing lacking here. It's not thick, 13.6, you can wear it under a cuff, but a Grand Seiko no-date automatic 3-day power reserve, caliber 9S61, regulated to no worse than -3 + 5 seconds per day, regulated in 6 positions, not the standard chronometer 5. And yes, because you'll want to see it, there is a display case back. Grand Seiko making everything, right down to the shock protection and the lubricants used on the balance staff. They build everything. They are the complete manufacturer. Okay, Audemars Piguet, two that are very wearable. 37mm in red gold and 39mm in steel. Okay, what are you going to wear? Are you going to wear the all-time classic? This is the jumbo, the 15202 ST, the ultra thin, 8.1mm thick as I measure it, or do you go with the 37mm, which actually wears more like a 40? This wears more like a 41, 42. But you go with the 37 with this nickel gray dial. It is a remarkably extravagant watch, but only 9.9mm thick and 49mm lug to lug. It wears bigger than the 37. But it's also a lot more wearable than a 15400 or a 15500 that just came out. The 41 wears like an offshore. This wears like a regular 40mm round watch. This, again, is more like a 41 or a 42, but it is razor slim. Which do you prefer? I'm a traditionalist. I'm going to go with the jumbo, but both of these watches are the answer if you're not digging the 41mm case. And finally, sometimes actions speak louder than words, and you don't get much more action than on a minute repeater. Now, IWC launched the first Portuguese minute repeater back in 1995. That was the 5240, but the successor model, the 5242, was only built for a short window of time between 2006 and 2008, and this is a 250-piece limited series from back in the day in red gold, 43mm. This is the Portuguese minute repeater. All right, 43mm, only 51 lug to lug, and less than 12mm thick. This is a dress watch. It's an oversized dress watch, but that's the Portuguese tradition. It has been since the first pocket watch powered reference 325 back in 1939 on the Portuguese market. Now, this watch today still features a pocket watch caliber on the inside. It is an IWC 95 series, manual wind. The watch is easy to wear. The minute repeater module is all on the dial side, so you can't see it. But the minute repeater module has an impeccable pedigree, having been engineered for IWC by Renault Papi before Audemars Piguet purchased them. Now, if you look at the case back, you can see that movement of which I spoke. Big, beautiful, slow beating, 18,000 vibration per hour balance, jewels set in chaton. Côte de Genève, perlage engine turning across the base plate, and as you can see, all black polished screw heads. I've looped this watch relentlessly. This is a level of finish you will not see on a standard IWC watch. A 250-piece limited series entirely hand-finished internally with a pocket watch movement properly sized for the case back. I believe this is the caliber 95-290, and as you can see, it even features an overcoil hairspring, and because why not, hacking seconds with an oversized hacking lever so huge you can actually see it operating on the movement. You can see it right there as I actuate it, adjacent to the balance. Now these are not the loudest repeaters, but what the Portuguese minute repeaters lack in volume, they make up in sustain, tone, and lyrical musical qualities. They sing, they don't ring. Okay guys, thanks to all who joined me. You got up late, or you stayed up late, you got up early, I appreciate even more. Thanks to you, thanks to my crew, thanks to everyone who makes the best job in the world possible. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.